My name's Adam. I coordinate a small computer company called Computer Care and Learning. And I realized I've been doing this for about 25 years. And so I've thought a lot about email over these years. And so when I started thinking about this topic, I was actually kind of bowled over by how much there is to say about it. It's just a really, really rich topic. There's a lot going on. I wanted to start by just talking a little bit about where email got started, because it's a funny story. And it's funnier still because I heard the story originally from David Galertner, who was one of my computer science professors. And he's a man who's very famous for, he didn't invent the internet, but he played an important role in thinking about distributed computing. A lot of the theoretical work about that is David's. And he because he was teaching I think he was teaching our, it was some very hardware kind of assembly language kind of course. He got to tell us the origin of email. So I'm going to try to tell it like David did, because I really liked his rendition. It went like this. The government decided that they wanted to build a network, partly for defense reasons, as a defense research project. So they put out some money to various research organizations, and they came up with a network, which we can actually see a picture of, I think. The network was called ARPANET. And this picture right here is the picture of the original ARPANET. I think that's as big as I'm going to get it. But I found this entertaining to look at for a couple of reasons. This is the Pentagon down here. This is the University of Illinois. You got to get a feel for this. So they're linking together various nodes throughout the country. And these are PDP-11s. And I found it really entertaining to do a little reading for those of us like me who never worked with that particular vintage of hardware. The PDP-11 had, when you paid a lot of money, I got to look, I think you can look up the price list for the PDP-11. For $6,000, you could get 4 megs of memory.
I think it was a digital one.
Digital equipment, yeah. This is a picture of this
All
fellow.
the early PDP-11s were core, but then people like Clearpoint and others, even Massachusetts, came up with DRAM adding cards, so you could get even a sort of middle range 44. You get up to a maximum of 4 megabytes, which in those days was astronomical.
I thought this was a riot. And the prices were unbelievable. Like the tape drives for these were $7,000 each. It's just a kind of totally different world. But so there was the linking of this stuff together. And the reason for doing this was that some research institutions did not have access to computer cycles. So the whole idea here was that you would have a terminal and be able to link into this network and use computer time at the University of Illinois. And so as a convenience to the researchers, they said, look, we've got these networked. Why don't we throw on some little add-on so they can do a little chatting electronically in case they want to coordinate their schedules or something. And the way David Galertner said, he said, this was so much fun. It took over everything. People love the email much more than the sharing. Who wants to do that?
It hasn't changed in 30 years either.
People love this. And so this was the beginning of email. Yes, please.
I worked for Prime Computer in 1985. They had an internal email system, and I was probably one of the 5 people that ever used it because nobody wanted to use it. They would rather send a memo, type it up, print it, put it in an envelope, and put it in the mailbox and have the mail courier send it around. I was stunned because I'd send an email out, would never get an answer. I said, what's going on? We have this product, but nobody was using it. Just a funny story about a big computer company internally not using it.
The other side to that, yeah. I know that a lot of people here have very mixed feelings about Microsoft, but one thing I like about them was they had a policy, a rigid policy of using their own email for their internal email, which I thought, and they said, we eat our own dog food here, and I thought that was honorable. So that's where things got started, and we all know that things got more exciting then. I did want to note that the early email that became available to those of us who were not on the ARPANET was a store and forward system by night. It was a modem system. You would have something, and then you'd have a modem kick in the middle of the night, right? And then pass it on to the next node. There was this whole kind of wonderful grassroots gardening thing that was going on, where people were creating these different nodes. If you want to read, if you're interested in the history of this, the encyclopedia. Let's see if I get the name right. It's by Bernard Aboba. Let me see if I get the name right. It's a really good historical document of this period.
Also, look up Cliff Stoll and the Cuckoo's Nest.
That is also really good. I was going to see if I can find his.
Are you looking that up on your fucking wagon?
Yeah.
I think it's called the Encyclopedia of. Yes, this is it. It's the online users encyclopedia. Now it's now almost everything in it is no longer of great value to us for professional reasons, but it's really interesting. It's got, for example, the inventors of the original internet talk about what was going on, what they were thinking about, the Volt, Baranek, and Newman people and other folks. He's a really good writer, and there's this wonderful detailed description about how to set up a modem and how to get it to work with email. It's a real it's now become a real historical piece. He also has a chapter on the ethics of computers, which I recommend. Since we're talking about books, this is a little off topic, but I'll mention the one that Charisse mentioned is a great book about computers. It's by Clifford Stoll.
He's the guy that single-handedly broke up a KGB spy ring trying to penetrate American defense computers.
To be fair, it was him and his wife.
That's true.
And there's something involved in a shower. There was a shower involved.
Yes.
This is a really fun book and a very interesting book to learn about Unix, because there's a whole Unix thing in it. He's a really good writer. He also wrote a book called Silicon Snake Oil, in which he says, look, I'm a propeller head, but I think a lot of this is ridiculous. So there it is. The other book I wanted to mention, because it's a really extraordinary book, is by this very odd man, wonderful writer, Theodore Rowe. I hope I'm spelling this right. Yeah, this is him. So Theodore Roszak wrote a book called, I think it's called, let's see if I get that right. Roszak. Yeah, here it is. It's The Cult of Information. This is the book. It's The Cult of Information, The Folklore of Computers and the True Art of Thinking. I really like this book. In it, he proposes that librarians run the internet, which I think is one of the most sensible proposals I've heard in a long time. He basically has a very valuable take on the bad road that computers could take, and unfortunately, this was written a long time ago, and a lot of what he said came true. His discussion about computers in the classroom was spot on. He said, you're going to end up with a whole bunch of unused computers in the classroom, and I go into classrooms all the time and see all the unused computers. That's exactly what happened. Well, these are at least are training people, but I'm talking about elementary schools where they have these computers and they've never been really integrated into any kind of real educational project. There are fortunately some exceptions, but so back to email. So what I want to talk with you about in thinking about email as we move on, some of the early email systems, CompuServe, AOL, and there are various mail readers that were text-based that some of you may have used. And that's where a lot of us got our start. My first address was a CompuServe address. So what I want to do is talk in a really practical way about email today and what we're doing with customers and what works and what doesn't. And I'm going to try to do it with the time constraints. There's a lot here, and I'll try to, please feel free to dive in. There's a lot here, and we won't be able to cover everything, but we'll try to touch on things. So what I want to talk about are some really basic decisions when customers come and talk with you about email that you want to help them with. And I can even actually, it might help to tell you, I got a call today about this. This is maybe it'll give you a feel for the kind of stuff that we struggle with about this. So I got a call from a very, very experienced consultant. She's been consulting in the nonprofit sector for many, many years. And she had, I think, taken time to be a government official and then became a consultant again. So she's now at the point where she's been using an AOL address for ages. And she's now at the point where she really wants to beef up her consulting practice, probably add some associates. She's getting stationery, she's getting the business card. She's really trying to be more of a presence. And her comment was, in my profession, if your website doesn't look professional, people will simply not do business with you. They'll look the other way. So she said, but her question was, she said, I don't have a website yet. I haven't found the right designer. I'm not quite there yet. I want to set up email, like the kind you have, she said, because I had talked with her about this a while back when I saw her AOL. I said, you know, you're going to be much better off having your name with a domain name. So I know some of the people in this room, this is very elementary, and for some people maybe not. So please, if I'm boring people, just look a little bored and I'll notice that. I just want to walk you through the conversation I had with her. And part of the art here is figuring out how do you talk with someone who's never heard of any of this stuff. So I'm going to try to share a bit of that. Again, I'm not talking down to you. So what I explained was that she needs, in order to get online and to have mail, she needs to have a domain name. So she said, well, can I just get a domain name? And I said, sure, you can get a domain name. And she said, how much would that cost? It's about between $10 and $20, depending on what you buy. And I explained that there's a privacy option. So if people aren't familiar with that, if you right now look up somebody's domain name, so if you look up, say, Clifford Stoll's domain name, this didn't quite work. I'm going to use, there's a very wonderful tool called the MX Toolbox, which I really recommend. It's a very powerful tool for doing anything you want. If you want to find out something about internet stuff, the MX Toolbox is a very good choice. I don't know if Cliff Stoll has what he has, but let's try it. So Clifford Stoll is in business here, and he has a GoDaddy as his email provider. It's a real compliment to GoDaddy. Clifford Stoll is an internationally world-famous computer expert. He's a GoDaddy customer. So that's his MX record, which we'll talk about. But basically what happens is when you look up somebody, if we do a Whois lookup on him, it says it did not, GoDaddy did not report it. Let's see what we can do here. This
Is it mxtoolbox.com?
yes, mxtoolbox.com. Let me try that again. I think we do this. I want to do a Whois lookup. I go here. And then I click here, and then I do here. So Whois lookup. Let's try him again. So GoDaddy is reporting, it's saying that the target machine is not letting us do a Whois on his. I'm not quite clear why that is.
Try purple.com.
Purple.com?
Yeah.
Thanks. It's pimple.com. Okay, here we go. So this is a standard Whois record. And what I want you all to know, and you need to tell customers, is that when you sign up for an internet account, an internet domain name, by regulation, the internet, although it's a wild and woolly place, there actually is some order. There's an organization that's responsible, and there are rules. And the rule is, when you are a registrar, that is, you have the right, there are tons and tons of registrars now. It used to be a monopoly, but there's tons now. But the registrars have to follow a rule. There's one really key rule. They have to include the answers to all these questions. So you have to say who the registrar is. There has to be a tech contact. There normally has to be a name and address. This is a rather odd one, it looks like. I don't know what this is. But Sharice, what is this website?
It's started by somebody in the IT community for pure basic diagnostic purposes. All it
that
displays
makes-
is a purple screen.
That may explain why it's so odd.
So
why don't we try?
If you want to see if you've got at least basic connectivity, if you can get to purple.com, you've at least got basic connectivity. It just displays a purple screen. That's it.
important note is that that was registered at Gandhi, which started in France, and unlike Network Solutions, which was trying to tell Wall Street that they owned all the names and were just loaning them to you, Gandhi thought that it's your name, we're just helping you get registered, and that's, for some people, the legal difference is significant. That's why Network Solutions lost control of a lot of the registration, because a lot of people quietly backlashed against it.
I use purple.com.
This is a little bit more normal, folks. So this is the Boston Public Library registration. So the Boston Public Library, long time ago, got bpl.org. They nailed it. They own it. By the way, just a quiz question. If Boston Public Library forgets to renew bpl.org, can you grab it and use it?
Some people have.
Can you go to Fort Knox and take the gold?
No.
You can, until somebody shows up and tells you to put it back. So that's what would happen here. There's certain, the trademark law and copyright law is woven into the internet rules. So it's illegal. For example, there's certain kinds of squatting that's illegal. You can't grab IBM.com. The normal rules about trademark is you can't pretend to be somebody you're not. That's kind of the basic principle. So if you look at this, you can see that the sponsoring registrars, Network Solutions, very, very common. They're registered with them. But the thing I want to point out is that there's lots more to learn about this. But the thing I want to point out is that Paul Rodine, I think he's either the president or he's the head of the IT department. I'm not sure. But you have to fill all this stuff out. You're required to put a name and address in here. And so this is actually not a trivial point. If you're running a home office and you want not people to know who your website is linked with, and you want some privacy, you can pay for the privacy option. And then the internet provider, so if you do a Whois on my company, so here we are, and it's saying that it's in the GoDaddy database. And if you want to see it, you have to go to GoDaddy. This is a special provision. I don't think this is just the privacy option, but you'll see. Let's see what happens here. So GoDaddy then makes you show that you're not a computer, and then they'll cough up the information about me.
You have to enter the capture.
Yeah. Okay, so notice they also take this nice opportunity to try to sell me a domain. Never miss that. GoDaddy never misses that opportunity. They're the largest registrar in the world now. And I actually have a soft spot for them because their sponsor, their main celebrity is Danica Patrick, the race car driver. And my first boss, who was a master typewriter mechanic, was a huge Danica Patrick fan. Every time I'd visit, he'd be watching the races and rooting for Danica, so they got me. Okay, so if you look here, if you notice the contact information, it's in Arizona. It's called Domains by Proxy. It's not me, and it's not my home address. Now that's the good news. Here's the bad news.
You misspelled
What I do, yeah.
computer care.
Thanks.
So it won't give you your address, but it'll give you your internet
Oh,
provider.
I won't even do this. You guys know this, but this is really depressing. Within two links, you have a picture of my house. You learn that my wife is an attorney who works in the same house. It's just you just can't get this
It's
away
scary.
from this stuff. It's just like, so this is something. This is a little. The privacy option is quaint. But it just does make common sense to me that you don't really want to be putting your home address on a website. So I don't think it makes any difference at this point, frankly. But you should tell your customer about the option. So you then register the domain, and then it belongs to you, and you can use it for what you like. The thing that she did not understand is she said, "Well, I register for this domain, and then I get email, right?" I said, "No, actually, these are two different functions." So what I explained was we have this domain name, and then you then need to sign up for some kind of hosting. So she has a Google account, a Gmail account. And so I walked her through how this works. So I'll walk everyone through. This will be familiar to most people, but let me walk you through. the way this works is that if you have a Gmail account already, a regular Gmail account, then you can't use your domain name with it. So I want to underline that. If you have a private Gmail account, which you get for free by just going to Gmail and signing up for an account, you can't have your domain name go to that account without some plumbing. So Google will not allow you to do that. You need to pay Google for Google Apps, the Google Business account, which is not a lot of money, but you have to do that. They won't allow you to use their mail servers with your domain name unless you pay them. You cannot do that with a
So
free
you can
account.
embed, abc@gmail.com in a domain.
Well, so if I want Computer Care and Learning to actually go to a Gmail account, I have to sign up with Google Apps. I have to pay them for that service. And then there's a provision for doing that. So I could sign up for a domain name for my $10 or $20. So now I have a domain name, yes? Then I could go to Google and pay them to be my mail host. And then I link the domain name with Google. There's a system for doing that Google has. And then when you send email to me, it would go right to my Google account. A very perfectly honorable way of doing things, a perfectly sensible way of doing things. I did not do it that way for myself. And for the demo that I'm going to show you, I didn't do it that way either. The reason, and I'll explain a couple of reasons why. One of the reasons is that email has become so important. So what I'm going to do actually is I'm going to take you on a little trip here. Folks know that every time I give a talk, I always hawk this program called ARPANET. Let's see if I can find it. There it is. This is a program that lets you access other computers in your lab really conveniently. It does take some setting up. I have to get the password right. It does take some setting up in your router to get it to work, but once it's set up, it's so delightful. It's so fast and so versatile. So this is a computer in my office that we're looking at. It's named after, all the computers in our system are named after teachers. Anna Perot was an aunt of one of my coworkers, and she was a school teacher. So we use this for our Web for Business class. 1 o'clock on Tuesdays, please join us. Hold on, please. And what I want to show you is the basics of how the email plumbing works. So if we go, the way I did this is I kind of followed the path I was telling this woman. I said, you need to create a domain name. You have to have a domain name registered. So my domain name is registered with GoDaddy. It's computercareandlearning.com. But one of the great things about having a domain name is you can create subdomains for free. So I'm computercareandlearning.com, but I wanted to create a practice site that didn't affect our website. So you can, in GoDaddy, you can say, create a subdomain called practice.computercareandlearning.com. And then I actually signed up with a different, much less expensive provider to use that as our practice site. So I'm going to show you that plumbing. This is KeePass, which also, as everyone knows, I always cock this program too. This is a free local program. It's not on the internet, and it's a very wonderful password program. I really recommend it. And just again, I always take an opportunity to make a public health announcement. If you do not have a complete password list and you do not give it to your executor, the person who will clean up the mess if something bad happens to you, you're not being responsible. Make sure you do this. Make a complete password list. If you have to do it on a piece of paper, on parchment, on stone, just do it. I can't tell you the amount of pain and trouble that you'll be causing the people who love you if you pass from the scene suddenly and they have to start dealing with your online life. It is a nightmare. I'll tell this brief story, and it's an email story anyway. We have a customer who's an attorney in Boston, and his web designer went crazy. So this happens. So the web designer disappeared. And he's a very established attorney, didn't lose any business, it was fine. But then a month later, his email stopped working. This is a serious problem. So we looked it up, we said, it's GoDaddy. So we called GoDaddy, and he said, I'm attorney so-and-so. This is my Boston Bar Association card. The address on the website is my address. I'm clearly the owner of this website. Would you kindly let me get into the email so we can fix it? Do you have a court order, sir?
Yep.
That's what they asked him. Now, this kind of nuttiness, it can be taken to an extreme, but you have to put yourself in the position of the relative or friend who comes in to clean up the mess. And they're trying to just pay your bills. Even if you've gone to rehab for a month or something, and they just need to take care of your life for a little while. It's a huge pain in the neck, especially because in real life, think about it. Your friend isn't going to come to your house and use your computer. They're going to use their computer in their house. And what is the first thing all these websites are going to say? This is not a recognized computer. Please answer these 3 questions. So one thing I really like about this program,
I use it for clients when they've scattered their passwords all over their different browsers.
yes,
So this scrapes the passwords out of all the browsers, centralizes them.
one thing I really like about the setup is that if you go into it, it has an advanced tab where you can add any fields you want. Yeah,
Email? Are you gonna go into some more email?
we're about to do that. Yeah. So you can go into here, and on the advanced tab, you can add any number of fields for the secret questions. You can also put credit card numbers and other good stuff. So strongly recommended.
What's the name of that program again?
KeePass, KeePass, and it's keepass.info is the website. Be sure to download the professional version. It's free, but it has the advanced tab, and you'll want to use the advanced tab. It's available. It's available for the Mac as well. But talk to me about it. There's something you need to know about it. Okay, so now here's how this gets set up. We're going to start with the provider I went with. Against Steve's advice, I went with Host Mantis. Steve had looked up and found some nasty comments about them. I actually found that they're fine for this purpose. I probably wouldn't do a professional fancy website with them because there was some grumpiness about they don't expand very well. But for this, it's great. It's $1.29 a month, such a deal. So this also, one thing wonderful about KeePass is you can open up a website with it. So I'm going to open up the Host Mantis website. And basically you sign up with these people and you create an account. And then you make a domain name. You either register it with them or with someone else, and then point it to them. So here we are. We're going into their website here. This is the praying mantis. One of the reasons why the low cost is so attractive is that they're using the same software that GoDaddy's using. This is all open source Linux stuff. The main reason why I recommend GoDaddy to most customers is they answer the phone. So the thing about GoDaddy is they pride themselves on actually answering the phone and working really hard. And my experience with them is they sometimes get it wrong, but they work really hard. And like the people who answer the phone are serious. I've had some issues with them, but they're a responsive company. So now I'm going to do the auto type feature of KeePass. That is a KeePass generated password, by the way, really crazy. Okay, so this is my control panel for these folks, and what I want to focus on is what I signed up with them for. I signed up with them for Linux shared hosting in Detroit, Michigan. Let's take a look at that. So this is the Linux shared hosting that I'm doing with them, and by the way, they have a Whois info thing. We can see what it says about me. Done this. Maybe not. Not too worried about it. Okay, so once you get into this place, you get this great control panel. So my customer is basically saying, how do I get email to work? This is the answer. I sign up with this particular provider. It could be GoDaddy, but in this case it's Host Mantis. And they take your domain name and link it to your email. So you then get to go into a panel like this, and you get a lot of space and a lot of versatility. So inside this panel, you get to create any email address using the domain name that I created. any number of email addresses you want. Usually, sometimes they'll have some kind of limit, but these days it's really, really rich. And notice that there's no limit on the amount of space either. It's virtually infinite. You can just keep piling this stuff in. If you want, you can actually impose a quota on your own people. If this is for a company or something, they have a quota option, where if you want to say, no, you can only put in this amount, you can do that. But once you've done this, you'll see that I already have created an account here, BNUG Prep at practicecomputercareandlearning.com. And what you get with that is all kinds of fancy features. So one thing you could do, for example, is to go into forwarders. And this is my strategy. So my strategy with my email is to use their email system and use use the email that they've provided. For example, if I go into over here where it says log on to webmail, it's kind of a goofy path, but this is the path that we're using up here for the webmail. But once you get the hang of this, you can put it in your browser and go to it any time. And so what I can do here, I'm going to use the auto type, so that's why I'm deleting this. So here's my email entry. So I'm going to right click here and put it in. Once you get the hang of KeePass, you stop knowing what the passwords are, which is really, really great. Let me try that again.
One of the downsides.
I think it's a mixed bag. I think it's kind of nice, actually. It leaves your mind open for other things.
And you can use 20-character password and know that you're in pretty good shape.
Oh my gosh. Oh, I did find, because we did have a discussion here a while back about how long the password should be. Who else but Steve Gibson has a website devoted to telling you how strong your password is, explaining how many billions of years it would take a supercomputer to crack your password. So anyone who's interested, just Google Steve Gibson password strength. It's great fun. A little
plug
surprised.
a password in and it
Yes, it tells you how long it would take to crack using a network of NSA computers. He's a riot. So this is a web-based email. So I want to say a few words about this because it's really at the core of our discussion. You really have two choices now with email. You can have a web-based email like this, or you can have a mail client like Outlook or Thunderbird. I would say, I strongly recommend you do both. They both have really strong advantages and disadvantages, and you want them both, and I'm going to explain why. So this webmail here gives me access to the mail. I'm able to do a new message, send it to people, receive it. If you want to, you can start messing around with an address book. So this is a perfectly reasonable way of getting your mail. It's got a search facility, very fast, very efficient. You can look up any email. Your email just gets shoved in here. What you'll find, though, with this kind of provider, like GoDaddy or Hostmantis, probably with most providers, there's not much spam filtering. You can sign up for Spam Assassin if you wish, and you can start training out the spam. But the fact is, you're going to get a lot of spam in this account, unwanted email. So what's to do? For me, it is not a good option to just sign up with Google, pay the Google Apps fee, and have all your mail go through Google. And here's why. Google has an excellent spam filter. You will rarely get spam in Google, and that really bothers me. Because what it means is you don't know where it's going. People are sending you stuff, and if Google is screening it out, you don't even know about it. This gives you the best of both worlds. The mail comes into this large account in its raw form, and then what I recommend you do is forward it to a Google account. Now this way, actually, you don't have to pay for the Google apps. Do you see? You have the mail come in here. You set up mail forwarding, and every email that comes in here is going to get forwarded to Google. Google's going to throw out all the spam, give you beautiful mail in Google. You get access to all the Google services for free. Google doesn't know about your domain or care. You're just using their mail service. And you have a full copy of all the raw mail separate from Google. So you have redundancy. If Google goes down, you get locked out of your account. I did promise in my handout that I would tell you how to avoid lockouts. This is one of the ways to do it. I don't know how many people have not had this experience, but I've had customers that have been locked out of all these big accounts, and Yahoo, and it's a nightmare. It's just such a pain in the neck. These companies have gotten so large and their customer base is so big, it is literally impossible to talk to a person under any circumstances. So you try to convince Google, no, it's really my account, and you have to send them all this weird stuff. It really feels sinister. And the thing I want to emphasize to everyone is that email is not technical, right? It's your life. It's become so integral to people's ability to function in the world that someone losing access to their email through a lockout is a really serious social matter and often a serious business matter. We have an obligation as their helpers to make sure this doesn't happen, or if it does happen, they have something to fall back on. This method will help. If you have this method, it's very, very hard to get locked out of your email. You have 2 copies of it in 2 different places. And furthermore, you have this raw copy, so that if Google is doing something goofy with their spam filter, you can do a search and find the missing email and at least know what happened. Yeah, Teresa.
An alternative to Outlook is Essential PIM. It's an Outlook lookalike, but it's a lot simpler, and you're not dealing with those cranky PST or OST files.
We'll get there in just a minute because we're going to move on to the client next. So people are clear. Domain name, mail host, which you have web-based access. You can use the mail forwarding. I'll just quickly show you that, just so it's pretty elementary. It'll look familiar. Just go back here if I can. The client area. I really like this control panel. It's this open source control panel. But here's where the forwarders go. And you can do really neat things like forward the entire domain to an account. You forward all your mail. But I created a little forwarding thing to forward this email address to Google, a little Google account that I created. Yes?
I like your explanation, and I was working in that direction, except that last July, Comcast, because I was using their webmail
Yeah.
as well as going through a client, lost all my emails prior to July of last year. Just disappeared. No backup. Fortunately, I had my own, but they lost it, and there was no way they can get it back.
And they offered you free unlimited internet service for the rest of your life in exchange, right?
Yeah, okay.
Right.
So-
I had a customer in the same area that also lost all their Comcast prior to that. So it's
Let this be a warning to us
Yeah.
all.
that's why I bring it up, because if
Yeah.
you don't do what you're talking about, you're possibly going to lose. You can lose your mail, even on a webmail host.
Yes.
I recommend never using cable email addresses because if you switch cable, all your emails are gone. So you should use another service
I
instead.
second,
Definitely.
definitely, very important.
So here's the point here. This hosting service, you're paying the hosting service independently of you're not using Verizon, you're not using Comcast. This company has nothing to do with your physical connection. And your point is that if you associate your email with a physical connection, you can be in big trouble when you want to switch.
Yep.
I would also add that the email address itself also becomes lost, right? If you've taught everyone about your email, this is actually the main argument from the beginning of telling everyone, not just businesses, get a domain name from the beginning. You can always move the domain name to a new provider. And there's no, I'm going to jump a little bit to the punchline of this story. If your domain name has your business in it, or what you do, or what you care about, every time you send someone an email, you're advertising. And this worked extremely well with our local pool email list, where I send out voluntary notices about what's going on in the pool. We do some political organizing. And it says Adam Frost at Computer Care and Learning. And people come up to me all the time and say, you know something about computers, don't you? Can you help me? It's a really subtle, simple, perfectly honest form of advertising. And your domain name really provides that. And so I really urge, it really is silly. I remember there was a grandmother who's looking at young people and saying, why are they wearing T-shirts that say The Gap? Does The Gap pay them to wear these T-shirts? And when you're sending out mail at AOL.com, you're advertising for AOL. Why not advertise for yourself? So, yes.
Yeah, I don't know if you're going to get here, but I just wanted to point out that I think it's useful to make a distinction between external, like using email for external contact versus internal, like within an organization. And it seems like maybe just because of the way Outlook is working, it's just so easy to forward something that you get from a customer to a coworker. But it just seems sort of clunky. And there's like a lot of, there's tools coming out like Slack and Yammer that are more for like internal use. So I don't know, at some point it'd be cool if you could maybe talk about maybe like where the future of sort of internal email is going. And
Do you want to say a few words about Slack? And have you used them?
yeah, I've used Slack. Like
What-
they sure, they're just web-based tools that they're like messaging tools, so, and they have channels that you can like subscribe to, and it's a way of like it's trying to manage like information overload.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess I'm just sort of pointing out that like it's sort of funny the way we use Outlook, at least in my organization, to contact one another, right? Because we're both in the same domain, you know, like there's no uncertainty about where this other person is, yet I'm using this tool that's designed for somebody who doesn't need to know anything about my network. So I just wondered, maybe if the tools get better for internally, like if it'll end up displacing email use internally.
That's a really interesting question. It raises for me one of the key questions about email and the real tragedy of email in our age, which is the shocking lack of security in email from the very beginning. I'm depressed to say that picture I showed you of the ARPANET, circa, where are we, late 70s, early 80s?
No, that was the late
What's it?
60s.
What is it?
Late 1960s.
Late 1960s, thank you. That graph, that PDP-11 graph, thank you. So, and now, the security of email is exactly the same. Yes, Mark?
Well, I mean, of course, Phil Zimmerman's PGP that Simpson Garfinkel did the O'Reilly book with the Gail Paddock on the cover for, and now GPG from, you know, the Free Software Foundation people. But it's always been hard to get that in place unless you knew a lot of things. You want to see what the what do you call it, I'm drawing total blank and I don't remember. It's the ACLU of the internet is
Open Software
Free
Foundation?
Software Foundation.
Free Software Foundation?
Not Free Software.
No, I know who you mean. You mean Mark Rottenberg, the guy in the Midwest who
Well, the guy who was running
Yeah.
the Tor project left to work for an ISP,
yes.
and his replacement is this person who comes from the EFF, Electronic Frontier Foundation.
Yeah.
Its EFF is now got themselves cross-signed with one of the main certificate people, who's recognized by every browser out there, so that they're immediately, instantly recognized, and they're putting your own certificates to the world is where they're heading. It isn't quite here, but they're heading there because they see this as a major problem. They were doing the HTTPS everywhere kind of thing, trying to force sites
So
to take
the punchline,
HTTPS.
the punchline of that is that
People are working on
where
this
we're
big
trying to
time.
go is you should be able to send a safe email from one person to another
Right.
and know that it really is you sending it and no one else will be able to read it. And right now that is so not true in so many ways. So I just want to note that it's a huge elephant in this room. The fact that email is so ridiculous in this way and it makes it so much less useful. Those people with the memos, they were being ridiculous, but you know, there's actually Peter Drucker, the great economist. His grandmother was a true character. She lived at the end of the Habsburg Empire. She was very old. And so whenever she would go into a store and price something, she would insist that the owner translate the price into the original currency of the Habsburg Empire. Because then she knew what the real value was. And many, many years later, Peter Drucker, the great economist at age 80 or something, said, you know, Grandma was onto something. Because she was actually trying to force the owner to let her know what the real value of this product was. And I think the people who have relied on old-fashioned communication and have had some suspicion about email, that this is not misplaced. So I want to talk now about clients and tell you, again, I'm trying to make this is this customer is going to sign up with email. She might do this 2-layer thing that I recommend. But let me just make a case for clients. This is Outlook, the biggest and most successful of the mail clients. I am very enthusiastic about this program. This is a very ancient version. This is for Outlook 2000, and it's quite fine. There's one important thing it doesn't do, but other than that, it's a perfectly good program.
Besides not being updated anymore?
It's not being updated.
It's expensive.
Well,
they used to have it with the home and family, you know, get as many machines work, and And nowadays, it's not in there.
It's
You gotta
ex-
spend big money for it.
You have to buy Microsoft Office in order to have it. A lot of people spend that anyway because they need Microsoft Office for other reasons. So I'm going to just address the fact is a very, very huge market share there. So it's less of an issue. The money is less of an issue, I think. But I want to make a case for this anyway. And I think it's worth the money. And I want to explain why. Because I know Microsoft is, we're always saying, these people. But listen, this is a responsible industrial strength mail program that does some things that are really important. And I want to talk about them. The first thing it does that I really want to emphasize is it takes the mail off the web and gives it to you. I just want to emphasize how important that is. Even with my scheme with the 2 webmails, we're in a world where people, when you have a webmail account, that webmail account is subject to attack from 4 billion people. All of whom, it's a rough world out there. Your local mail is much, much less susceptible to attack. It's on a local area network, which is very, very difficult to get into. There are viral issues and stuff. But this is a much safer environment to protect the mail from destruction. So if you have a mail client, its job is to download the mail, and it downloads it into a file, and the file has physical properties. The file can be copied onto a flash drive and put in a closet where nobody can get at it from the internet. I know this sounds like sending paper memos, but please send some paper memos. There's a lot to be said for it. What I want to make a case for is using Outlook with, I know Charisse is not thrilled about it, but using a PST file, which is the core file of
Well,
Outlook.
you have to use the PST file.
The PST file is the core file of Outlook, and I just want to sing a couple of praises of the PST file. For anyone who has dealt with other programs, other mail programs, and tried to back them up, or tried to move them from one computer to another, and shrapnel, right? It's like Jell-O. A lot of these mail programs have all these weird files floating all over the place. You don't know what they are. The PST file is monolithic. There's one file and one file only. There's one exception to that. Just so you don't get your arm cut off by a user, there's another file called the NK2 file, and now it's called a stream file, which contains the most important feature in Outlook, and the most important feature in all of email. What is it? When you start typing an address in the to field, it fills it in for you. I can't tell you how every single customer, when I messed that up, how I've heard about that faster than any other feature. It's incredibly popular. But pretty much everything except for that feature was just kept in a different place. Everything important in Outlook is kept in this one file. The contacts, the mail, the calendar, all the mail, all the attachments. Charisse.
Well, the problem is that the PST file, if that's all you back up, and you have a problem, that's what you restore, Outlook is going to stare at you and say, go away, don't bother me. It won't work.
Say more. Say what do you?
You have to back up the entire folder and anything that it puts underneath it. Because if all you're backing up is the PST file, it won't work. There are a bunch of other files in that folder, so I back up the entire folder.
I'm going to respectfully disagree with you on this one, but I'm not sure exactly what the other files were for you. In my experience, this program...
and I'm dealing with more current versions than 2000. 2000, all you had was the PST file, and you were fine.
I'm a little unclear which files you're talking about, but let me just say this.
Anything
I don't know what those
figure
files are.
2007 and beyond.
But I'm not sure what
Outlook
those...
2007
What are
and
those
beyond.
files, Trees? What are those extra files? What are they?
There's configuration files.
Yeah. So I'm not saying that the PST file is the only thing in Outlook. You'll have, for example, if everything else is hosed and you only have the PST file, you have to recreate your mail accounts. There's some stuff you have to do. But let's talk just for now about the core stuff, which is the mail. The mail, the contacts, the address book. All of that is packaged into the calendar. All of that is packaged into the PST file. And I just want to praise the versatility and power of this file. It can nowadays get very large and be safe. I want to warn you, please, if you're using online backup like Carbonite, let me warn you. PST files routinely are 2 gigabytes. Carbonite takes half a day to download a PST file, and they do not allow you to do them in parallel. So if 3 of them are corrupt, you'll have to pull down the first one. Oh no, that one didn't work. Pull down the second. Oh damn. Third one. Yeah, this is awful. Don't depend, please, on online backup to back up mail. It's not safe. It takes too long. And I know this is unbelievable, but even if you have an emergency and you call Carbonite, which is a local company, they're based on Summer Street in Boston. If you call them and you say, look, I'm the president of this company. I need to have this email file now. It's an emergency. They will say, there is no one in Carbonite who can get this for you in sooner than 6 days.
Mhm.
This is actually, they've actually told me this. So please, use online backup if it fits your strategy, but please supplement it with local backup. Just to give you some contrast, I had a customer and I restored 6 gigabytes in 3 minutes from an external hard drive in contrast to the 6 hours. Yes, Therese?
Okay, now, I use Outlook. That said, for 2 reasons. One, because I can get receipts if I send it to somebody, assuming they actually allow the receipt to come back.
Okay.
2, I can format the email with different fonts.
And what program is it using to do that?
Outlook. It's internal to Outlook, and it
You know,
taps off of the font
what-
structure inside of Windows.
I'll add more to that. Every version of Outlook I've ever used invokes Word as the editor. And the reason why Outlook
You
is
can.
so,
You can.
it's by default.
It's an option that you can engage if you want Word as the editor. You don't have to use Word as the editor. Outlook uses their own editor.
Yeah, we can,
Rather
but,
than argue which one's
Yeah.
better in Word, can you let him finish his discussion, please?
well, I think that what Therese is raising is one of the many angles on using a program like this. Outlook is a full-fledged mail program because it links, at least I always link it with Word, you get access to the full benefits of the Word editing system. But what I want to focus on for a moment is the PST file, because it's at the core of what I look on as the responsible professional use of this program. As the mail is going on, the mail is coming down and going into this PST file, which is stored someplace, and you can find out where by going to the advanced section of personal folders. You'll find out where it is. Learn where your PST file is. Watch that PST file and take good care of it, and you'll be a happy camper. What I strongly recommend is you know about that file and know where it's kept. And the power of this file is what I think is Outlook's greatest feature is, let's get real here. We're not talking, I know that a lot of people who are in the web space, they're young, they're in their 20s, they're thinking about the present. And they're saying, I've got my email now, oh, I've got to do this quickly. Those of us who have been in business for a while know that life goes on. You compile a year of mail and then you need to put it someplace because the feds are going to need to look at it someday, or you may get sued or something. You can't just have a huge pile of mail sitting somewhere. If you have a huge pile of mail sitting on Google, you can get locked out of it. You need to put the mail someplace. So what the PST file lets you do really conveniently is get mail for a while, create a whole folder structure with all the filing you want to do. You can use subfolders and folders. You can organize your mail beautifully. And then Archive has Outlook has a simple, powerful archiving feature that lets you say, please, all the mail for 2014, I'm done with it now, archive it, put it in a PST file. It does that for you very easily and quickly. Then that PST file sits on your disk, and here's the beauty and power of Outlook. When you need that mail, and you might need it quickly. You might be the sort of person, oh God, yeah, I need that thing. I did this great essay, it was emailed. You simply do this. You go to the file menu, and you do open, and you go to PSTs. Nowadays they call it an Outlook data file in the newer versions of Outlook. When you open a PST file, it opens up, I'm not going to do one right now, but what it does is it opens up below here and gives you access to all the mail immediately. I just want to emphasize how powerful this is. You've taken all your mail and wrapped it in a PST file and put it on a disk where it's dormant. It's not involved in Outlook, it's not slowing it down, it's not getting processed, it's just sitting there on your disk. But within 5 seconds, you can do an open. It will get added to this file structure, and you can retrieve, search the mail, do anything you want with it, copy folder structures, do anything you want. This is fantastic, because what it means is you can have a real archiving strategy. You can archive the mail by the year or by 2 years, whatever strategy makes sense. Put the archive aside. And the effect of it is that you have all your mail, you know where it is, you know where the year's mail is, but it doesn't have to be active. You don't have this huge, huge pile of mail you have to search through. And it's a responsible, safe way of protecting the mail. You can back it up like crazy. You can take all these PSD files and put them on flash drives, put them on copies, encrypt them, put them in different places. And this way, because email is usually one of the core issues when it comes to legal issues, when you need to prove that you did something, you have these copies and they'll be as safe as they possibly can be against accident.
Now, because the Outlook files, PST or OST, tend to get cranky and they can get corrupted and they can be complicated to deal with,
Wait, you're talking about PST files or OST?
both, especially PST.
I differ on that, but go.
And I also found that because the data file is stored in the underneath the user profile, app data local Microsoft Outlook.
Yes.
Okay, and I've tried to move it into my data structure so it
Good.
automatically gets backed up. Outlook redirects back to where it wants.
I don't know if we have time today, but if someone wants me to show, there's a consistent, completely good way of doing what you're saying.
Okay.
So the early versions of Outlook, what Teresa's talking about, it is a really serious problem, and I want to emphasize it. Thank you for bringing it up. The early versions of Outlook, until 2010, I think, or maybe 2007, did something incredibly stupid. It took the most important file in your organization, which is your PST file, and put it in a hidden directory,
Yep.
nested 3 or 4 layers down.
Inside your user profile.
What were they thinking? It's foolish. You need to know where that is. But fortunately, there's a very simple technique you can do to move it to your data structure. The short version of it is find out where it is, make sure you're out of Outlook, rename it, move it to the new location, then start up Outlook, and Outlook goes insane. Where's my PST file? You say, calm down, and you redirect it to the new PST file. You say you have it. You have to do it twice. You say okay, and it says no, and you say yes. And then from then on, it will.
I did that, and it kept going back to the original
Sometimes show
location
me, and
inside the profile.
I've done it I've done it many times.
So
Yeah.
for those 2 reasons, one, I use Essential PIM
Mhm.
on my tablet, and I keep a copy on my computer.
I don't know that part.
It has a email function, which I don't use it for email, I use it for my schedule. But it's an Outlook lookalike. It doesn't have the complexities of Outlook. It has a single file that's backed up and it's self-healing, and it's just easier to deal with. But it has about 95% of the functionality of Outlook. And it's fully configurable. It's constantly updated, and it's free.
That looks really fun. Look at
That's
that.
not an issue starting with Outlook 2010. You get the new Outlook 2013, 2016.
Yeah.
All the Outlook files are a subfolder in the documents.
They fixed it.
Starting with 2010, yeah.
This is 2010. Yeah, they finally fixed it. Is that what you wanted to say?
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's
they
in-
finally
it's in-
fixed
It's
it.
in the documents folder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But why it took them this long?
It
is-
doesn't matter.
But I'm
It's
glad
where
it is, unless you're working with a customer with an older Outlook, which certainly I do often. But yeah, I'm glad it's found a good place.
Well,
Yes.
another thing you should mention is on the PSD files, they tend to get rather large.
Mm-hmm.
When you're deleting files or when you archive, you should do a compress.
Yeah, so I can show people that. So when you, after you've done a lot of deletions or a lot of cleaning up, what you want to do is right-click, go to where the personal folder is, and under Advanced, there's a Compact Now. Now, I don't know if this is true, but what I read somewhere is you're supposed to do it 3 times, like clicking your heels 3 times. So I'll do that 3 times. We're happy.
Is there still a,
As far as size goes, I think if you archive responsibly, I think that helps a lot with the size issue. When Outlook gets corrupt, the other thing about Outlook, another positive thing about it, and there are some negative things, but positive thing about it is there's a vast third-party market about Outlook. It's just about anything. It turns out that their archiving function has a slight flaw in it that doesn't handle modified, if you move email, the dates get screwed up in some way. There's a company that makes a living selling something that deals with this problem. It's just a very, very rich collection of support for this mail. But what I want to emphasize is that when you run this mail, you will have the mail in your own system, and it's so important. Let me say, there's lots more to cover. I want to talk about POP and IMAP so that people are clear about this. So the original way email gets downloaded to a client is using the post office protocol, POP. And you know that when you set it up, when you set up an account, so all programs, Thunderbird does this, and so does Outlook. Thunderbird, by the way, is a free email program, perfectly honorable thing to use. I'm not saying you have to use Outlook, but I do think it has a lot of advantages.
And there's about 1 million free add-in type things for it, whatever you want to do.
There you go.
Amazing program.
So, are you talking about Thunderbird?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Thunderbird.
Private
This is the setup for this account. And the key thing is the servers, right? POP is mail coming in. SMTP, Simple Mail Transfer Protocol, is the mail going out. So your provider gives you these servers. You just do whatever they tell you. Also, your provider will tell you whether you should include the @ sign and the domain name here. Some do and some don't. You just have to ask them. Then there's this tab which controls the ports. Most providers now are doing SSL, meaning it's a secure connection. This means the mail is safe all the way, right? You just send the mail, goes to the other person, and no one can
No.
break into it because it's SSL, right?
No.
Right?
No, because it leaves a copy at every hop it hits.
Yeah, this is a very false kind of security. It's protecting the initial connection, but it's not really providing a whole lot of security. I mean, there's advantages to it. I think it means that it's harder for someone to sniff your password when you're logging in. I think that's why they do it. But it's not gonna make a big difference. I don't know enough about that to say. But the thing I want to emphasize here is that POP is the simplest and rock solid system. It's been used for many, many years. It's very well understood. It has a major disadvantage. The major disadvantage is that the folder structure that you use in Outlook is unique to your local machine, which means that if you create cool folders for yourself and you organize all your mail, the mail on the web in webmail won't be the same folder structure. And if you, as so many people are now, you have a phone or you have a tablet and you want to see your folders, you can't see them. The solution to this is IMAP. So what IMAP does is it reproduces the folder structure. That's its job. You have a folder structure that's kept on the server and it reproduces it through all the devices. This is obviously better and everyone should switch to IMAP, right? I don't know. I have done this for customers who've needed to have it. They've gotten the phones, they've needed to have IMAP. There's no argument. I found actually it's kind of wonky. I found there are various kinds of issues having to do with deleted things not showing up as deleted. There's various other kinds of weird things that happen with IMAP. It creates odd folder structures in Outlook. There's just a bunch of stuff you have to deal with. But, you know, it's like if you're an actor, you have to go to New York. If you have a cell phone, a smartphone, you have to use IMAP. So there it is.
Or hosted
Yeah,
exchange.
pardon? Oh, yes, you should say something.
Express handle IMAP, for 1,000+ folders on one email account only, let alone the 10 you can have open at a time or 20 or 30. It doesn't matter. It's extremely powerful. Why anybody's using POP in this day and age, I have no idea.
Well,
IMAP is so flexible. You don't have to see all the folders you have. You may have a work-based one, a local social clubs you're involved in, the computers you do for different things. They can all see them, but you tell it, I only want to see this part of my folder structure. I mean, I've never counted, but well over, including subfolders and subfolders, well over 1,000 folders of my main mail account. And I see different ones depending on which computer I'm using. But I have one computer that sees them all. You can turn them on in the others, but you don't have them turned on.
Sometime will you show us this?
What?
Sometime will you show us at a
This is
meeting?
really
Show us-
simple
yeah.
stuff. The guy who did the IMAP RFC works for a biotech thing right in the Cambridge area.
In IMAP, I've seen issues with slow internet connections because it's constantly syncing.
Yeah,
So
there's a lot of talk. There's more talk.
There's a lot of talk on, it takes a lot of bandwidth to make that work.
And
out.
plus, some of the mail service providers don't want you to store all your email on their systems, which is what you're doing with IMAP.
Well, run
Fine.
your own.
Fine.
And there's another issue.
No, you know.
The sent folder
Yeah.
in your email
Mhm.
is not the same as the sent folder in your smartphone.
It can get,
One would think it would be, but it's not.
it's complicated. Yeah, I find this gets really complicated. I just want to say a word about hosted exchange and just talk about hosting and sharing. When you're in an organization, what's your name?
Mike.
Mike, when you're in an organization, as Mike was talking about, you start really doing stuff, right? You start sharing calendars, you start doing all that stuff. So what that led to was a major project of Microsoft called Microsoft Exchange. This is a very, very important initiative on their part to own the Office market, because what they wanted to do was control the computing that was going on in organizations. And Exchange took Outlook and leveraged it and said, you have Outlook. Your friend over there at the other desk has Outlook. You can exchange calendars. You can send the other guy tasks. And it required this extraordinarily complicated server called the Exchange server. It's one of the most intricate creations of man. It's just an extraordinary thing. It requires a specialist to take care of. And you can see where I'm going with this. What ended up happening was this drove everyone nuts. People just couldn't stand it. And so what they did was, because internet speeds got fast enough and bandwidth got wide enough, people said, oh my God, I don't want to deal with Exchange. I don't want an Exchange specialist in my office. Get this out of here. So a whole bunch of companies cropped up providing hosted Exchange. And the trick here is you have Outlook here, but the Exchange server, instead of being in your office, is in Cleveland. And the internet pipe is providing the connection rather than the LAN, the local area network. Now, this, by report, and other people can contradict this, I've heard very good things about this. I've heard very positive.
Well, there's now Exchange 365.
And there's a variant on it.
Office 365.
Well,
So,
part of Office
but
365.
Do you want to say a few words about people's happiness about this? About
I'm
how
very happy our clients, their phones, their desktop, notebook computers are all synchronized. You see the same information. You send out an email. They no longer worry, oh, wait a minute, I sent it from the office. It's not in my sent folder anymore. Everything's all synchronized. If you have a computer failure and you have to rebuild, you just go back to the Exchange server, completely download your entire email history so you have the local copy.
And additionally, with Exchange 13, there's no more UI. It's a command line, and you have to know PowerShell to administer it.
Say that again about downloading. So if you have hosted Exchange,
Yeah.
you can download everything to a PSD file? Is that what you do?
Well, it's essentially it's an OST file. But if you have an additional computer, you had a desktop computer, suddenly
Yep.
you had a notebook computer to travel,
Yeah,
you link into the hosted Exchange site,
yeah,
put in your credentials, and everything synchronizes down.
okay.
So you have a full copy.
For what it's worth, I actually had to research this year about OST files, because I had a customer and they were using Outlook, and they had a Hotmail account which uses some active sync complicated thing to do this stuff. And the gist of it is that it created in their Outlook, it created an OST file. And so
Exchange does use OST.
So my question was, if something fails, can I use the OST file to get the mail back? And the answer was
Not really.
not really.
Not really.
So this is the point I want to make. It really isn't a substitute for a full mail client. So if you're using hosted Exchange, look, you're dealing. My father was a Depression baby, right? They took away the piano while he was playing it. He like completely affected his psyche. I lost a customer's data in my second year as a computer professional. I've never gotten over it, and never will. So if you hear that, just accept that as my neurosis. But I just want to emphasize that for every customer, my question is, if these idiots lose my stuff, what do I have? And so my question about hosted Exchange is, what do I have? If the hosting company goes down or someone hijacks my account, what do I have? Yeah.
There'll be a lot of companies that can't use a hosted in the cloud thing at all because of their legal or medical or whatever things. There's all kinds of, you know more about it than I do, but you don't want your private email anywhere near these people.
Well,
Could be a HIPAA
this is a
violation.
really important point. Yes.
Yeah, the other thing you do periodically is export your email folders.
That sounds smart.
And that exports into a PST file.
Okay, so yes, I think that's exactly the right remedy. I think I agree with that. So I just want to emphasize this to everyone.
So what
If
you
you're-
were talking about before, which
It's
was
like
archiving
archiving.
by year.
It's archiving, but here's the thing. Think of PST in the Outlook world as being the gold standard. If you have something in a PST file, you can assume your data is pretty safe if you've checked it. And so don't settle for the OST file, is what I would emphasize. The other thing I will tell you is that I have a customer that uses Outlook as a client, and they, pardon me, but they use POP, and they're happy as clams. It's cheap, they have a good mail provider, they've never had a problem.
But they have one computer per person. You can't replicate it to 5, 10, 20, or 100.
They're
Now,
small, they're
and with
10-person
iMac,
company.
You do that, you make a change over here, and everybody sees, all your computers see it.
I definitely can see that. For
And a
them,
new computer comes online, and it can get the entire picture, all
I'm with you.
1,000 or 2,000 folders.
for them, it's not an issue. But here's the thing I want to emphasize. What they have is they have Outlook in their office. And they asked me, they said, we want to be able to share tasks. And we want to be able to share our contact lists. What can you do for me? And I just want to tell you what my answer was because I was really pleased with it. So I said, oh, I know. Let's put in a $4,000 Exchange server and I'll come and maintain it every month. And I didn't say, let's do hosted Exchange because for some of the reasons that we're talking about, I, for one, am just nervous about it. I still have not, I really appreciate the positive feedback about it. But no, I appreciate the positive feedback. I'm moving there, but it's slow. So there turns out that once again, the third party for Outlook is jaw-dropping. Some guy, some company called Code2 has invented a mock Exchange server. It's really amazing. So basically what it is for $100 or something, you basically install the software on one of your machines, and all it does is it copies everything from everybody's stuff and puts it on the server someplace. But the effect of it is you can do all the Exchange stuff. You can share contacts, you can share email, you can do all this stuff, and you're paying almost nothing. There's almost no sophistication to it. And so I just want to note that for people who want to do the Exchange-like stuff, and I think more and more people want to do that in an office. My argument is that I'm because of my head problems, I'm not really in favor of using websites internally to talk with each other. I just feel like,
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
a totally legitimate concern.
yeah. So, but this solves this problem. Again, in my universe, if you make things really difficult for the bad guys, they'll really lose interest. So this is kind of my basic strategy. The fact is, it's really easy to sit someplace and hack over the internet. What a blast. But getting into a local area network by coming to a building and having to put, wiretap on the wire, this is at least making them work, making them sweat. And that's what I like to see. So when we talk about local area networks and having something that's contained in the local area network, it's very, very hard to get in there. Very hard for bad guys even to get into the network. And so I come to see of this on the relative scale as being a very secure way of communication. So I recommend you take this under advisement. Steve, we have to immediately cut off, or should
No, we can go a little further. We should be out by 9.
Okay. If people welcome to stay, if you need to leave, don't be shy. But thanks.
I'll be done.
Thanks so much for coming.
Yeah,
So,
thank you.
yeah. So let me go back to my outline here if I can find it. Just see what we want to touch on before we wrap up here. Bear with me.
What a nice site.
I really like this website.
Yeah, it's a really awesome
It's simple,
website.
clear.
We should do a who is on that.
We should, yeah, definitely.
No, it's not.
Okay, so we've talked about a lot of this using Gmail as the host, IMAP. Let me just say a few words about the space limit. You can't send big files on email. Email, and it just shows, to show the email system is really made of bubblegum. I mean, that's really what holds it all together. It's not really for anything serious. There's a system called Send This File. There's also a crypto one, which I don't have at my fingertips. Yeah?
It's called Move It
Move it.
by Ipswich.
Is it, and you used to work for them, right?
I do work for them. In
You
fact,
work-
I'm testing the software right now.
And is it encrypted?
Yes.
And online? Like
The
you
way it works is, if I want to send you a large file, I will put the file into Move It, and it will send you an email message saying there's a file waiting for you. You will connect up to the Move It server. You will set up the credentials so that only you and the server can talk. You'll be able to download the file. The file's encrypted from my machine through to yours.
Now, can that be put on a smartphone, and how much does it cost?
It can be put on a smartphone because we've tested on mobile, and I don't sell it. I only find problems in it.
Because I have a couple files on my smartphone, one of which is 275 meg. I would love to get on my desktop computer.
So this would be, you'd get a price quote and probably be like a company license that you'd get. If you need to do this on a more local basis, this sounds fun. If you need to do this on a more local basis, you can use send this file, very straightforward. It's free for a few sends. You basically just point to the file, click on it, it sends a link to the person. When they get the file, they download it through a secure website. Yeah.
You can do a similar thing with Dropbox.
And Dropbox has a similar
Yeah.
Yeah,
strategy.
you
Yeah.
can right
Meaning-
click on the file in Dropbox, and it will make a link that you can copy,
Yeah.
and send a link in an email.
Great.
Yeah, I'm meaning to do
So
that
that-
from my phone.
That's the send this file. That's the send this file method. Important to do. All right. So talk a little bit about we've talked a little bit about the problems with email. I just want to say a few quick words about encryption. I've talked about this in other meetings, but I just want to underline the really simple solutions to this problem. Most communication today is done by PDFs. There's a perfectly valid, powerful encryption built into the PDF standard. If you use most of the PDF creators, I just want to emphasize to people, the creation of PDFs is now absolutely available for free. You don't have to pay a penny for it. And you can use good quality encryption, PDF Creator, these other programs that are well respected. I really like this solution, and let me explain why. It solves the problem that Barton was pointing to. The problem with PGP and these other things is that both parties have to have it. And it's just such a pain in the neck. The great thing about PDF is someone's done your homework for you. Adobe, in that brilliant move, akin to IBM opening up the documentation for the IBM PC, which is one of the great business moves in history, not for them, but for us, the move that Adobe made, which is one of their great business moves for them, was giving away the Adobe Reader. It's a brilliant move. And the effect of it is the Adobe Reader now is complete standard. Everyone has it. It means you can send an Adobe file to somebody, an Adobe Acrobat file, that you've created from Word. You go to Word, you print, is everyone clear on this? You go to Word, you print the file to a PDF. In the PDF creator, there's a feature where you can say, encrypt this. Do it. Encrypt the file. The person at the other end, when they open it, it asks for a password. So if you can develop some good social methods from simply getting a password to that person, what I recommend is calling them on the telephone. A couple things. Call them on the telephone. Have a password that's based on a song or a poem. That way you don't have to, the person doesn't have to know the phonic alphabet. Alpha. And it's also fun. You can say, I love my customers or whatever. You can have some fun with the passwords. But the gist of it is once you have a shared password, remember, most of our customers, at the size of customer base that a lot of us work with, customers often have customers they work with for years and years. So have a shared password. It's a simple relationship thing. Just like you would have a customer and they'd fill out an organizer or they'd fill out something, have them work out a password with you. Then you can send them documents, it will be passworded, they open it. But there's another benefit. On their system, it will be passworded. We don't really think about this. But when you're sending stuff by email, it's going someplace. Think about the full life cycle of the document. I'll give you a horrible example of bad thinking on the score. One of my customers is a nonprofit that works with children, and they're required by law to do a CORI check and a sex offender check on anyone who works in this or volunteers in this organization. So you have this volunteer, or no, she's not a volunteer. She's a paid person in a nonprofit in her home with a computer, and the Massachusetts State Corrections Department or whoever it is keeps these records, and they have to register. They go through all kinds of fingerprinting or whatever to get access to this system, right? So she's been vetted, but she's in her home office, right? She enters her password, she gets access to this registry, she enters somebody's name, and they send her this locked file. It's secure, it's got all these passwords, she's got to unlock it, she has to go through all these things, she opens it up, and there she gets to read all the horrible things that this person has done, or not, and if not, she gets to have this person be a volunteer. Then she takes this document, and it's sitting on her hard drive. So after all this work that the registry has done to protect this file, we have a volunteer in her house with this file, which if somebody got it, would be big lawsuit. This is not a minor issue. these documents often have extremely confidential information, which if this nonprofit released by accident, she throws out her computer not knowing that somebody could dumpster dive it. She doesn't know. She works for a nonprofit. She's working a couple hours a week for this, for like, some nonprofit athletic organization or something. I just want to emphasize that this organization that's not protecting her from herself is not doing her any favors. What they should be doing is sending her a file that's encrypted by its nature, and you open it to read it, but then you close it and it's encrypted again. It's not that hard. Adobe PDF is the right way to do it. So I just want to emphasize that when you're sending stuff, think about that. Yes.
I noticed this, that the electric company had used the zip code of the user as a passcode. So they just say, when you want to open up the file, just use the zip code of your address. But if somebody found the file, they wouldn't know what the zip code would be for that person.
Okay.
Okay, because
Okay.
if they got that file, they wouldn't know.
It would depend on the circumstances under which they
It
got
would
the file.
depend, But at least it had some encryption on it. It's
Oh.
the first time I'd actually seen it used in a very.
This is Adobe. It was a PDF?
It was a PDF.
Yeah, okay. They're headed in the right direction. Then we've talked a bit about dangers of web stuff. It's been documented now that the government has been reading email constantly and using vast computer processing to.
No!
It's true. But also Google does it too. And I've been using the story, the half-brother, the stepbrother of one of the Google founders is a very smart and talented legal scholar who's very, very concerned about people's privacy. And so he wrote a very angry letter to Google about this practice. What Google does is it reads your mail and then puts up ads that has to do with the content of your mail.
Yep.
An outrageous intrusion of your privacy that Google says, what do you care?
That's why I'll never get a
If you-
Google
if-
email address.
the president of Google said something like, if you're not hiding anything, why are you worried? I think it's a completely irresponsible attitude. It was outrageous that they did this. They also claim that, no one reads it. It's done by a computer. Therefore, there's no invasion of privacy.
When you delete it, they don't.
Yeah, that's why I'll never get a Google email address.
No, you
Okay,
have a-
so, and I'll emphasize again, this protection against lockout, I really want to emphasize how dangerous this is. This is very tempting, and very legitimate companies put their stuff on Google Apps. It's happening all the time now. It's such a deal. Who could say no to this? No computer geek in your office, get them out of here. Put it all up on the web, but you understand, if you're locked out, it can be incredibly
That's true.
ugly. So give yourself backdoors, back up. We talked a bit about the mail clients, and I talked about Outlook managing requirement professionally. For those of us you are setting up an account, we talked about the incoming and outgoing servers. All outgoing servers now require authentication. I don't think there are any exceptions to that. That's just spam prevention. They need to know who you are.
We should be thinking about winding down
Yeah.
so we can clear out.
Get to the end here. Just want to see if there's anything else is there something that catches the people's eye? I warned you about Carbonite. I want to, these little subtle things can make such a difference in a person's life. One other reason why I really like Outlook is it has a very simple feature. There are two that I want to tell you about. One is that the way I have Outlook set up, send and receive is manual, not automatic. So when I write an email and I click OK, I'm done with writing the email, it goes into the outbox and sits there. A little breather for me. So if I suddenly realize, oh my God, I wish I hadn't said that, or I forgot the attachment, which is much more likely, I just go into the outbox and fix it. I really recommend this. I recommend this to everybody. Having something where you write an email, click send, I don't think it's a very good idea.
Wow.
But let me just add one more thing to that. A related thing to delayed sending is a very subtle issue, but I think it's very, very important that you cannot do with any web-based program that I know about. Maybe Hosted Exchange you can, someone can tell me. When you attach a document, when you create a new email, and you do an attachment, so it attaches the file it's thinking. So here's the file. Now here's what I think is very beautiful. I'm not sure about this older version of Outlook, but all the newer ones do this. This file is not the original file. It is actually a physical copy of the file that's kept in a temporary directory.
Yep.
And so it's basically grab the file from the original, put it in here. Now here's the beauty of this. You can open up this file. I don't know, it's some kind of error message. You can open up this file, and the file you're opening up is really the one that's going to get sent. Here's what I recommend. Never, ever, ever send out an email unless you've done this. Go to the attachment and open it up and look at what you're sending. The reason why I want to underline this is I know we're all in a rush. I know this got to get done, all this stuff. But the fact is, if you send the wrong bill to a customer, or if you send a confidential document to the wrong person, you can get in really serious trouble, and it's so easy to do. It's really not hard. This is a really good protection against that. If you always open the attachment before you send it, and again, you can't usually do this with webmail. And when I'm forced to use webmail as my main email, I feel this difference so sharply that I can't do this, and I really strongly recommend it. Yeah, sure.
Google started a thing a few months ago, recall feature. If you send an email and you realize, oh, I didn't want to do that, you have like 30 seconds to stop it.
I'm not that good.
Outlook also has a recall feature. You can engage it, it will go out and grab the email from wherever it was sent to and delete it,
Amazing.
at least on the newer versions.
I think the last thing we'll just yes, I will finish up. I'm just going to repeat my punchline here, just to say, because there's so much to say about email and how many things you can do with it. But I just want to give this very simple example. This pool email list. The swimming pool I swim at is a public pool. We have 300 swimmers there, thereabouts. It's a wonderful resource. Kids come there, they're on the swim team. Drowning rates of urban kids is much higher than of other kids, and the reason why is they don't know how to swim. So any pool that fosters swim lessons is just a wonderful public health addition. But one of the big problems with a swimming pool is that, unlike some other social organizations, it's almost impossible to get everyone in the same room. It's really, really difficult to do. So I just want to say, you've probably heard me kind of saying, computers are often oversold, you know. This is a case where computers are just the right thing, and where email, effectively used, is a really great addition. The effect of having a simple email list that a person can send out an email to all these swimmers and say, we're collecting money for the lifeguards. The pool's going to be closed on Monday. The city is not cleaning up, or the city just fired this great lifeguard. Give them hell. For years and years and years, this very simple, inexpensive process has allowed lots and lots of people to form it's really helped foster community in a really positive way. I just want to encourage you to use email in that way. And I want to thank everybody so much for coming, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Who said, oh yeah, my organization started in the basement of the old Cambridge Baptist Church. It's a beautiful building. It's about a block from the Harvard T-stop. This is it. When you come, there are some glass doors here on the right leading to the basement. That's where we are. These are the glass doors right here. A warning about parking. It has a very tempting parking lot. Don't park there. These are wonderful Christian people, and they will tow you before they look at you.
But they say a blessing over your car.
They do. You park on the street, bring plenty of quarters. Cambridge is very mean and very fast. Other than that, we're lovely to visit. We do a potluck, and it's a 4-hour pickup basketball game, basically. You come in, refurbish computers, meet other people, eat, chat, network. If you have a computer repair question, you're welcome to bring that in. It's also was designed to be a field training ground for computer technicians in training, or people who want to polish their skills. I've been very disturbed that there's so few opportunities like that for us in town. It's very hard to get hands-on experience. There's lots of classes, but
What
not
happens if you park there beyond 2 hours?
in
In the same spot?
I think someone know the answer to that? I think you
Yeah,
have to
no,
move.
that's a parking violation, you'll be paying a big
But
fee.
realize Harvard Square also goes to 8 p.m., not 6 p.m.
Yep.
I'm particularly eager to have more experienced computer people at this clinic. Right now, I and my cousin Ben are the senior people at this clinic, and the clinic would run better and be richer and a better experience for everyone if there were more professionals there. So really, yes.
Do you have need for hard drives and other spare components?
Yes, and we'll take everything.
Okay.
Some stuff we end up recycling, but we'll take everything and look at it and decide.
Okay, I'm cleaning up I'm kind of going offline and I have a lot of extra stuff and I don't want to just dump it.
We love it, and it's a tax deduction that you got to
Okay,
receive.
good.
Yep.
What hours are you, Wednesday?
We're open on Wednesdays from 3:30 to 7:30, every Wednesday, all year round. And my contact information, which will be up, which is right here. If you have any questions or you'd like to come or you have any concerns about it, don't be shy about calling me. And also, if you have family or friends who want a computer, we provide for families that are lower income, we provide a full computer system, desktop computer system for $50 with Boston's only lifetime warranty. As long as the clinic is alive, we'll take care of you. And for moderate income and businesses, we provide full computer systems for $125. And they're now sprinkled around businesses in Boston. I'm really proud to say we just gave out our 350th computer, and I would say probably about 20 of them are actively running in businesses in Boston. Not that many, but substantial number. And it's just wonderful to see these old workhorses really helping, a woman who runs a pest control company, and it works perfectly well. It meets all her needs. She saved lots and lots of money. It's great for everybody. So really, let businesses know about us. We'd love it. We really appreciate the business. And we'd really appreciate if you reach out to potential volunteers for us. We love having more people in, more the merrier. It's a great networking experience. I've learned so much from it. I've met lots of people. Lots of people from all over the world come into the clinic. So also, it's a great, if you're interested in learning a new language, there's remarkable opportunities that way.